welcome to Discovering Justice. We'd like to hear your comments about all our segments. Please visit our website for information on this episode and any other segments of Discovering Justice at www.discoveringjustice.net. And if you have any questions or comments about any of our programs, please contact us at lucinda.rivera@discoveringjustice.net. I am your host, Lucy Rivera, and I am here with the Dean and Professor of Law of Suffolk University Law School, Dean Camille Nelson. Welcome, Dean Nelson.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Today. Dean Nelson, we want to learn about you with Suffolk University Law School. Tell me, you studied at the University of Toronto, and then you studied at the University of Ottawa, and then you went to Columbia University. How does this mix of culture and experience and across the border has shaped your approach
Sure.
day-to-day duties as a dean?
Well, I think between Toronto and Ottawa, both being in Canada and then my experiences in the States, I think it's in keeping with the times insofar as we're increasingly concerned about globalization. And of course, the NAFTA free trade agreement has sort of presaged that occasion. But I think certainly more and more schools like ours have been concerned about comparative law and the internationalization of the curriculum. So I think, if anything, it just gives me a slightly more broad and capacious, if you will, approach to the law and appreciation for different points of view with respect to a given law or a given student or a given faculty member. It just broadens your horizon.
I can certainly appreciate that. But when did you become dean of the university, of Suffolk University Law School?
So I officially became dean on September 1st of last year, 2010.
Ah, well, congratulations.
Yeah, so I've been with them for a term.
Oh, and how would you find this experience so far?
It's been wonderful. I mean, I've been joking with friends that I finally found something that's in keeping with my energy level. It's a time of transition at the school. There's a lot going on, so I think it's an energized time, and that's exciting.
And so, what is your day-to-day like at the university? As a dean, day-to-day dean.
Busy. Meetings and more meetings. I like to say I'm on a listening tour, so to the extent possible, I'm meeting with as many students as possible, as many faculty members, as many alums, as many staff and administrators, so I can learn more about the institution and really get advice and guidance and support from as many people in our community as possible. And I've also been traveling around the country speaking to alums. So things have been busy, but I think that's to be expected. If you want to make informed decisions, you want to speak with as many people as possible before you make any decisions.
Yes, that's correct. And in that vein, I wanted to ask you something important about that. Suffolk University Law School is my alma mater.
Yes.
And they have a history of opening doors to people of ability, of all different kinds of backgrounds. What is the importance of that?
Right. Well, I like to think about it as being our promise is to really appreciate promise, right? So not everybody has extensive or deep resources, but part of our mission at the university level and certainly at the law school level is to really pride ourselves on creating access and opportunities for worthy and competent and capable students. So what that means is we are educating the whole person, and we're particularly concerned about being inclusive, right? And that's been the tradition. When Gleason Archer founded the school over 100 years ago, part of what he spoke about was ensuring that people who otherwise didn't have access points to a professional education, and law specifically, were given that opportunity to study law and become a professional, because that, frankly, is a pathway for economic opportunity.
Oh, and is that commitment something you've seen since you're dean of the law school?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've been really struck by, frankly, I wouldn't be there if that mission wasn't a part of who we are. I take that very seriously. It's personal for me. But I think that the ways that manifests is in terms of faculty who are deeply concerned about the students as people, right? So we have a very caring faculty, a very caring and nurturing staff and administration. And how that manifests in terms of the community is when I speak to alumni, they say things like, if it weren't for Suffolk, if I hadn't gone to Suffolk, and I've been using the legal language that you appreciate, but for Suffolk, where would I be today? So that to me, speaks about educational opportunity and access, right? If I were not given this opportunity to study and to learn and to be nourished, right, I might not be where I am today. So that's very serious, and that's been something that I think many people from circumstances that, you know, are perhaps outside the traditional norms of professionalism, right, in terms of where have we seen most lawyers coming from, for people from outside that traditional realm, that's very, very serious, right, and that's a wonderful opportunity to be taken seriously in that way and brought into a professional community.
And it's true. As an alumni, I identify myself with what you've just said, and I am a proud alum of Suffolk University Law School as well.
I'm glad. Well, we're proud that you're an alum and that you're doing this, and this is wonderful.
But to go to law school, everybody has a role model, and everybody has a personal experience. Who has influenced you? Or what influenced you to go to law school? How?
You know, there have been a number of people. I mean, if I go back to high school, and then I'll speak about some other people, because I think these are the types of opportunities, these but-for opportunities and access points that I was speaking of. For many of us, there were individuals in our lives, individual teachers, for example, who saw something and saw potential, or what I'm calling a promise of promise. And for me, there was an 11th grade history teacher, Mr. Presley, who, you know, challenged me and suggested to me that I could, you know, do better and go further than perhaps I had thought myself, especially in that particular class at that particular time. But it's always important to have those people who say, you know, you can do better, and really challenge you, even though you're doing well, but really push you to excel. And that's perfectly consistent with, I think, two of my biggest role models who, you know, it sounds trite, but my parents, in terms of their level of expectations and for excellence, but also just for trying. So, you know, we were always asked, well, did you do the best you could? And, you know, sometimes you actually aren't doing the best that you know you can do, but if someone is always challenging you to do the best you can in the circumstances, you end up pushing yourself. So, you know, in terms of role models, I've had many wonderful professors or teachers like Mr. Presley. I clerked for Justice Frank Iacobucci of the Supreme Court of Canada. He was a tremendous mentor and a teacher at heart. So when we talk about people who teach you and push you, these are the types of individuals that I'm thinking of.
And but why law? How did you particularly decide to go into law from all this?
Well, I did an undergrad business degree, and so I think that's a nice foundation for the law, as are many other, you know, undergrad educational opportunities. But for me, the power of the law is the transformative potential of the law, especially for women and people of color, or again, people who perhaps have not come from the traditional access points for professional educational opportunities. With a law degree, you're taken a little bit more seriously, right? So you speak with a little bit more credibility when you have a law degree. And if you're actually interested in social justice, or if you're interested in transformation, or if you're interested in education, or if you're interested in, you know, so many different points that push us to be better, then law is a natural conduit. And when you think about the great lawyers in our world, Gandhi, and you think about the great, you know, teachers in our world, many of them were lawyers. So
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's very ennobling, and I'm one of those people who thinks that it's a great profession, and that, you know, there's so much that's good about the profession of law because of individual people who can make a difference using the law to transform for the better, right?
Yes.
I mean, so that's how I come to it. I came to law school as someone who was naive enough to think I could actually do something, hopefully do something good with a law degree. So, and I think, you know, I'd like to instill that in our students. I mean, one person can make a difference, not just in the law, but in lots of different ways, but that's how I personally came to it.
And in your words, and I'd like to repeat that, one person can and do and makes a difference. Yeah. I want to remind everybody who's viewing us right now that you are listening and watching Professor of Law and Dean of Suffolk University Law School, Dean Camille Nelson. And this program is Discovering Justice. You can find information about our program at www.discoveringjustice.com. It's our webpage. And I am your host, attorney Lucy Rivera.
And alumni of Suffolk University Law School.
That's right. Dean Nelson, what advice would you give the students at Suffolk University Law School, or somebody who's an applicant for a legal degree?
Right.
What would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them some of what I just said in terms of the potential of the use of the degree. And I would say to a potential Suffolk applicant and student who would ultimately be a graduate, the same thing that I would say to any student or person considering graduate education is you will get out of it what you put into it, and to take it very seriously, you know, especially at this time when, you know, in so many different areas of our marketplaces, you know, our economy, we see constraints. So when you're entering these educational opportunities, see them as opportunities. See them as, you know, sort of carpe diem. See them as moments when you can strive to be the best that you can be. I think, you know, the downside is coming into it and not taking it as seriously or more seriously than, frankly, the undergrad experience. It's a very different animal, right?
Yes.
The expectations are heightened. And I really do believe you get out of it what you put into it. And it's not just the classroom experience and participating and being prepared in the classroom. It's also participating in the life of the school, right? As you
Yes.
know, there are many extracurricular opportunities.
course.
There are many ways for you to be a part of the school through affinity groups and student organizations and community service and outreach opportunities. There's a gazillion things going on. And I think you do yourself a disservice as a student to not really, what I tell the students is immerse yourselves in the law. And that's the classroom experience, but it's so much more.
Yes.
And I think that also empowers students as they go out the door. They have a very rich and robust resume that is not just I excelled in my classes, but I excelled in my classes, I volunteered here, I was a part of this organization, I did moot court, I did these journals,
That's right.
et cetera. It has to be full. Right? And so that's in a nutshell, you know, how you should encounter any professional opportunity.
Yes, and in that vein, as I see it, the students get involved in the university as a way of giving back.
Absolutely.
You've emphasized that importance by telling them to give back. And how should students consider this giving back to the community?
Sure. Well, you know, part of the question you asked earlier was about role models, and I think about something that my father used to say to me, and it was, you know, a paraphrase of Shakespeare. You know, he'd say, "Unhappy is the head that wears the crown." But it, you know, I know Shakespeare.
I'll say that again.
Unhappy is the head that wears the crown. Shakespeare didn't put it that in that language specifically, but basically, you know, when you're in law school, as challenging as it is, it's a privilege. And I said this to the orientation students in my opening remarks in August, and that is, as difficult as law school is in terms of the challenges you will face in terms of, you know, just it's voluminous and it's wonderful and it's new, you're immersed in a new language. There are people in the world that would change places with you in an instant. To be able to study law in an American law school at this point in history is a real privilege. And I'm not saying it's not without challenges, but if you think about it in a global context, going back to your very first question, coming at this as a Canadian, you know, Jamaican too, actually, and in the States, you have a global lens, right?
That's right.
So from a comparative perspective, there are millions of people who would love to have the opportunity to study, for
That's right.
one,
Yes.
right? And to study law, too.
Right.
So that behooves us, I think, to think about the ways in which we can contribute to societal uplift, right? So even as a student, you know, there are many opportunities for students to give back. We have our, you know, SPILG auction coming back, our, you know, social justice auctions and our public interest auctions, and we have many food drives. We have lots of different things, but we also have ways in which students give back to the school from day one, and to think about, you know, how do you want to be a part of the community going forward? And I just think it's natural, right? If you have this opportunity and you're going to do something with it, we should also start thinking about what is it we're going to do with it beyond the 9 to 5, right? Because there's a power in the degree.
Right.
And that was the power that I talked about. People suddenly listen to you. So hopefully you're going to be a voice and give back for the better, just as you are here, right? I mean, it's
I
true.
appreciate that.
No, but it's true. You can practice, but there's lots of other things that come with practice because suddenly you have a voice. So the question is, how do you use your voice
Right.
for good, right? To help others. How do you use that moment that you have, that space that's been created through your hard work to help? And I'm not telling people how to do it, but I think all of us have different interests and different passions, and we can pursue them. And a law degree allows us certain access to pursue those additional passions and interests.
And do attorneys have a commitment in general?
Well, you know,
per
from
se,
the model rules,
give
actually,
back.
I mean,
Exactly.
we have the preamble of the model rules of professional conduct speaks specifically about the lawyer's role as a public citizen,
Yes.
who is tasked with, you know, being oriented towards social justice. So that's not defined, social justice. We can talk about what that means to different people. We all have our different understandings of that. But within that domain, certainly a lawyer's obligation is to behave ethically and to think about the ways in which we could give back. And that includes pro bono services, being involved in committee work, you know, in the legal profession and beyond. Right? There are lots of boards in the greater Boston area and New England and around the country, and if not the world, that could use, you know, our help. But, you know, so I'm just, you know, the push is to urge us to think broadly about the ways in which our legal degrees and our ability to, you know, our higher educational background can be used in service of others in addition to in service of our own professional, you know, acumen and acceleration.
And how is Suffolk preparing students in this commitment?
Sure.
As I was a student there were millions of clinics.
Yeah.
But as you are speaking about, there are millions of programs that they have now. I mean, I've graduated so long
Well,
ago.
our clinics are highly ranked and nationally ranked, and they're highly regarded. And we have, you know, an immigration clinic, we have a juvenile justice clinic, we have lots of different clinics, and the clinics are incredible. And the clinics service underserved areas of our community, and you know this. We also have the Rappaport Center for Law and Public Service, which is a great center that's devoted to public service in a concrete way. And out of that center, we run our pro bono programs in terms of, you know, the ways in which students are giving, you know, are helping others and giving free, you know, assistance to others using the educational opportunities through the law school that they've been given. And there are many faculty and administrators and staff who are involved in so many different projects throughout this area and this region who give freely of their own time. So it's a very rich community. And that's what drew me there. It's a very rich community in terms of our community outlook. And people are very generous, you know, and people don't have to be, but people are very generous with their time and their support and their open doors. And that's giving too, right? Lending an ear is giving. Telling someone you can do it is giving.
Yes.
So I want to be clear that when I say giving and being supportive and helping others, I don't just mean writing a check. I mean encouraging other people is giving too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you know, there are lots of different things we can do together.
Yes, and it's really comforting to hear this and rewarding. And I know that with this message, you talk to your students and you tell them, if I can do it, you can too.
Yeah.
And what message are you trying to convey with this to them when you say this to
Well,
them?
it goes back to our mission. I mean, I was not the typical just law student in the sense. I'm probably not the typical law school dean either, right? So it's, I mean, maybe that's the consistent message in my you know, progression to this point. But, you know, entering law school, I'd never met a lawyer before. I mean, I didn't come from a background of judges and lawyers and jurists and others steeped in the law. I came from a background where mom and dad were serious about education, right? And they expected us, this is the setting the expectations, they expected us to work hard and to try our best and to go forward in whatever areas we chose to pursue. One of my sisters is an art historian who's a professor at McGill. Another one of my sisters is a financial planner. So we all chose different trajectories, but it was always, are we trying our best? So upon entering law school, I mean, I was very naive. And, you know, and I think about some of the faux pas and the, you know, things, you know, in terms of the first year experience. And it was a really transformative experience for me. You know, I didn't always get it right. And I wasn't, you know, always a great student. After the first term I was, you know, to be honest, but that was just hard work. And that was also having great role models and great professors and great people saying, you can do this, right? This is not impossible. So having great supports, and that's what we do at Suffolk, right? Is support people to be the best they can be. So literally, I said to the orientation class, if I can do it, you can too. Here are some of the crazy things I asked in classes, right? You know what I mean? So you know, the students got a kick out of it, but you know, you recover, right? And you just try the best you can, and you know, it has a funny way of working out eventually, right?
As Dean of Suffolk University Law School, and with all this, your role is, I congratulate you and welcome to Boston.
Thank
and
you.
I know you've are Canadian, but how do you like our new town? How do you like your,
I like
your new
it,
town?
You know, yeah,
Your
no,
new home?
I'm learning still. I can't say that I'm always going in the right direction in the in traffic or whatever, but you know,
Yeah.
so I'm still in learning mode. But I'm enjoying it. It's a nice, manageable city, and it's a real city, and I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying the vibrancy, and I'm enjoying the way in which I've been welcomed. To be honest, people have been very, very, very kind. You know, so I appreciate that. So we're settling in nicely.
Our Bostonians, are we welcoming you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And Dean Nelson, you said you've been the dean since last summer, right? So it's almost not a year, not quite a year. So what have been your priorities so far? What do you see your priorities for the school?
Right. Well, you know, my first priorities are the students, and it's a difficult financial situation in terms of the legal landscape, right? So making sure our students are not graduating with mortgages, right? That's a priority for me in the sense that I really want us to get a handle on student loans, and I would like to see a lot more scholarship money flowing into the school for our students, right? I don't want them to be graduating with the equivalent of a mortgage, right? So we have to get a handle on tuitions, the rising cost of tuition. All deans are struggling with this. Many educational institutions are getting serious about this, making sure we have more scholarship money, and that involves a big priority is really, frankly, mobilizing our alumni base. We have over 22,000 alums, so that's going to be essential, and really uplifting our faculty and admin. We have a great community, and they deserve, frankly, to be nourished and celebrated a lot more than we've seen in the recent past. So I'd like to make sure we do that for the sake of our students. That's the core, the students.
Dean Nelson is here with us. You've just been listening to her, and she's speaking about Suffolk University Law School. And Dean Camille Nelson is the professor and the dean of the law school, Suffolk University Law School. And again, for all of you, please contact us at lucinda.rivera@discoveringjustice.com. And we have just a few minutes left, but Suffolk has a lot to offer, and that's how I invited you to, that's how this program sees value in this. What are your comments as to the school so far, and as far as your being the dean? As you mentioned, you are from Canada, and it's not a very traditional path to be a dean.
Sure.
You care to comment on this?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the Suffolk tradition, though, right? I mean, in terms of creating avenues, opening avenues and channels, perhaps for those who might be seen as non-traditional for whatever reason. Maybe in 10 years it will not be non-traditional, it'll be absolutely the status quo, that we have lots of women deans and lots of deans of color, right? I mean, that's a possibility. But, you know, I think how I see this is as a garden. I see our law school as a garden, and there are many seeds that we're planting and that have been planted, and we have to nourish those seeds so they blossom. It's just like the students, we have to tend the garden. So you know, I'm a visual learner. That's one of the things I learned when I was in law school and graduate school. And so that's how I see it. And I see myself as one of those people who's in place to nurture and to till and to garden and to hope, you know, that everybody comes to bloom, you know, sort of blossom where you're planted. And we have a lot of great people there. And many people are blooming. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. It's a great place to be.
And how has the faculty changed so far?
In terms of transitions, or
yeah, I mean, in terms of your commitment to diversity.
Well, the faculty. I mean, the faculty were the ones who voted for me.
Yeah.
So I serve the faculty. That's how I see myself, right? The faculty are the reason I'm there.
That's right.
If the faculty weren't supportive, I wouldn't be there.
Yes.
So I see myself as, you know, you know, my leadership style is to lead with their, you know, their input and their urgings. I'm a very transparent person.
That's right.
So I'm sort of, you know, a leader amongst many, right?
A leader amongst many with us today is Dean Nelson, Dean Camille Nelson, and I thank you. I appreciate your being our guest today, and I will welcome you to Boston, and thank you for your leadership at the law school. It's certainly I'm proud of our city and of our institutions, and about my alma mater as well. So to say a few words in we have to say goodbye pretty soon. It's almost, they're asking me to wrap up. So please contact us. Again, you have our email. If you could put the email on the screen, it's lucinda.rivera@discoveringjustice.net. And then and our webpage for our this program. You can see this program on the internet, or you can at www.discoveringjustice.com, and hopefully it'll show on your screens. Well, Dean Nelson, thank you for being here today.
Nice talking to you. Thanks for having me.
And,
It was fun.
and I look forward to following all the next steps for our institute, our school, and welcome to Boston
We'll stay in
again.
touch. Thank you.